Happen. So make sure your cell phones are off. We'll turn our microphones on. Thank you everyone for coming tonight to this special meeting here September 17th, 2024 in City Chambers. This is a special meeting called today to discuss for consideration of the VCV block metrics revised PDA. Would somebody please call the roll?
Bevins.
Here.
Beezer. Grasula.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Kirsch.
Here.
O'Day.
Here.
Sandy. Yeager.
Here. Thank you. So first thing we have here is an approval of an agenda. It's only got one item on it, new business. Do we have?
Motion to approve.
Second. We got a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll. Oh, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Very good. Okay, so item 4, this is our new business, guys. This is the consideration of why we've all been brought here. James, please give us the basic rundown. So just so everyone knows, this is not intended to be a public hearing tonight. Where we're going to have James kind of walk us through kind of what's in front of us here. It will be my intent to let any representatives or applicants speak, and then we will have any follow-up with any questions for either James or the applicants, and then we'll bring it back to us. And we'll discuss this amongst ourselves, and we'll see if we can make a decision here tonight. We have a couple different options of action we could take. We could obviously push this along. We could choose to not push this along, and we will also have the ability to either a tie vote, which would be a non-prevailing, or a no action, in which James can explain to us what would happen in either of those scenarios, if you can add that on to your basic opening summary. Please, Mr. Kramvik.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So Block Metrics is requesting an amendment to the PDA to extend the commencement construction deadline, revise the minimum improvements for 1911 TC Drive, and note of the transfer of outstanding membership from to Block Metrics from VCV. The facility, just a quick rundown, does meet setbacks, screening, exterior building materials, and was preliminarily reviewed by the fire department as well as the city engineer, and they had no issues with the plans. You'll notice in the revised PDA there's a provision that has been added that states no former VCV owner shall own any interest going forward with the company. Also the time for the EDA to provide an answer to the developer would now be 30 days instead of 10 days. I'll kind of mention the question that Mr. Yeager had regarding that. If an answer wasn't provided tonight, they would automatically be approved construction plans, so there should be an answer provided to the developer tonight regarding the purchase and development agreement. One of the primary concerns regarding the facility is sound. The new miners will now be entirely enclosed within a building, which will satisfy the new zoning code that was passed by City Council. The air conditioner and coolers will be completely covered and have slatted walls, which will help dissipate sound as well. Staff has provided calculations and maps that display decibel levels within zones. The last ring, if you want to put that up, Sean, will be between 47 decibels and 41 decibels. So this is the maximum calculation. Does not take into account that there's a potential roof over it that will help reverberate sound back into the ground. Also, this is taking into account the coolers running at max capacity. These numbers are well within MPCA guidelines, not only for the industrial park, but also neighboring residential properties. And the new design has significantly reduced sound produced at the proposed facility compared to the last proposed facility. Just wanted to add a little bit of context. I did do some decibel readings with my phone, not a perfect instrument, but took my own at my own house, an air conditioning unit that I have to run throughout the summertime. Runs at 60 decibels. Right next to it, as you go to the next room, which is, there's not a wall next to it, but 25 feet away, it dropped to 50 decibels, which again is that sound of a dishwasher running in the next room. Mm-hmm. Once you went into the next room, just in the doorway, it was at 45 decibels, which was barely noticeable, just slightly. And then when you fully went into that next room, another 10 feet, it was at 40 decibels, which they're comparing to a library, could not hear it at all. So it seems to be kind of consistent, those decibel levels, with the sound readings that were in there. I also took a reading within my office, door shut. Also had a reading of that 39 decibel unit. So I wanted to make sure that it was kind of consistent with that chart that I had provided in that sound study. So with that, So also, I just wanted to add for context, the Just for Crypto facility has 10 outdoor mining units that are louder and have a higher frequency pitch than the 8 cooling units proposed by Block Metrics that will be partially indoors. This facility will certainly, in staff's opinion, be quieter than the Just for Crypto facility. Also wanted to note that the land that we're looking at is zoned as an industrial zone for industrial uses and is our industrial park. The EDA is certainly aware that we have looked at potential residential development in this area, so we have done some concept planning, but it is certainly zoned right now for industrial uses. And after this meeting, depending on the outcome, Block Metrics will still need an extension of the power contract with Brainerd Public Utilities to make the project feasible. BPU wanted the EDA to provide an answer before reviewing the power contract at their next meeting. So with that, staff recommends approval of the resolution approving an amendment to the purchase and development agreement between the EDA and Block Metrics. I can answer any questions. Representatives are also available from Block Metrics to answer any questions.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Kramvik. Does anyone have any questions for James? Please, Mr. Bevins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. James, I just want you to re-answer the question that I asked you on the email regarding conditions. And I'm specifically referring to some.
Yeah, so conditions added to the purchase and development agreement at this time would be very difficult to do, such as needing to meet a sound condition or require testing every so often. That would really have to be drafted by our attorney from Kennedy and Graven, because there has to be remedies within the purchase and development agreement. So that's not something that should be added, on the fly at a meeting like you can with a conditional use permit. Conditional use permits you can add conditions a lot easier as long as they're reasonable, because there's an outline in our zoning code that explains what happens if you don't meet those conditions. So a condition, that would need remedy should not be added tonight as part of the purchase and development agreement.
Okay.
Yep.
So at this point, all those noise readings that you took of your air conditioner really aren't, in my mind, pertinent. What is the speculative noise level of what they're going to do. And I appreciate that, the new drawings. I think they're doing everything they can reasonably do, but we don't know what they're going to put out. And without the condition of having to measure it 3 months down the road, 6 months down the road, whatever, it really has no meaning. And I really think this use should be a conditional use permit. I think our past planner dropped the ball when he just stuck it into manufacturing without having planning and zoning look at this as a conditional use for this exact reason. So, thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions for James?
I guess.
Please, sorry. Yes, please.
I guess related to that, so like if there are any noise violations, or I don't know how we consider it a noise violation, but what are the implications of that if once it is constructed, there's noise issues?
So the city would have to look at enforcement based on our MPCA regulations within our industrial zones. So again, there's certain noise standards for industrial zones. There's certain noise standards for residential zones. When I did this, even if there were to be residential zoning in some of these industrial parcels, it would still meet those standards. Certainly it meets the standards for industrial zoning, without a doubt. So, if they do put in coolers that are louder and the facility is louder and it's in violation of MPC, it'd be the responsibility of the city to enforce that. Would not be a responsibility of the MPCA.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so we got a petition today. I don't know if you guys saw the email, and I'm curious about that process. If we were going to use a CUP, would that slow down this process to the point where we'd have to wait until it goes all the way through planning and zoning, which we don't know if it's going to happen for another month or two, maybe when they cover this subject. Then it has to go through council and 2 more meetings. So I think what we have, the project we have in front of us is 10 times better than the one that we saw a few months ago. I'm still not excited about crypto mining, but I think this has kind of covered what the main concerns were. I really think with the addition that you sent us today, cutting off the one side of the building and making it kind of a horseshoe shape is really gonna just shoot the sound into our industrial park, which could become a concern at some point. But I do like the regulation of the CUP with measuring the sound at least annually, or somewhere where we measure it at night once or during the summer, the hottest points of the day, stuff like that. That's my 2 cents for right now.
Thank you. Any other questions for James? Okay, so, yeah, please.
I'm still trying to go back to the minimum improvements and understanding. So if this doesn't move forward and they're not able to do any development on it, is this authority then responsible for finding another developer that can execute those minimum improvements? Meaning that no matter what happens to, like, if this doesn't move forward tonight, we're still looking at having to have some sort of crypto mining operation on this parcel?
That's correct. That'd be in the event that the authority wanted to attempt to retake the land. Then at that point, we would have to advertise with a real estate agent to find another developer to complete the construction documents.
And they would need to develop it under that specific
Under
use.
the original, a similar building to this one, it was kind of at an angle. It, I believe, probably was designed for 50 megawatts versus 25 on this one. But obviously, the power contract with Brainerd Public Utilities is open for 25 megawatts right now. But they would have to complete those ones that were approved, I believe it was about maybe a year and a half ago.
Okay, sorry, I didn't catch that last part. That was kind of my other question, is they're asking for changes to the minimum use. Is that gonna increase the amount of energy that they need?
So this, I believe, VCV, a year and a half ago, was looking at their facility as starting at 25 and hopefully being able to expand to 50. This one, right now, in my opinion, is pretty much built out to 25 megawatts.
And that was like the understanding of the minimum use that was initially passed, is that's the kind of cap on it, is 25?
So 25 is what they're contracted with Brainerd Public Utilities right now. So unless they were to, right now Brainerd Public Utilities isn't offering more power. If they were allowed to offer more power, there's potential, but they would have to come back to the EDA for approvals. I do know that probably our next thing that we'll be working on with Planning Commission is crypto mining as well, and I think the commission is interested in maybe adding conditional use to it. So in the future, if there were expansions to it, they couldn't just do it. If that was passed by planning and zoning, they would have to get a conditional use to expand. But that's all speculative until City Council would pass that ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah, please.
I think anything that we are to approve should be subject to approval by BPU. It really should be up to them to be extending. I know they kind of left it up to us at this point, which is much better than what we had before, which was like zero communication. They would just approve something, and then we were kind of stuck with it. But now I think our communication, if there's one good thing that came out of this, our communication with the BPU committee is actually improving. So I would be more comfortable if we had that condition on there as well. I guess I never really got an answer to the question, if we're going to do a CUP, could we just do that today? Or would we have to wait until everything is?
So that would probably take, at least 3 months to go through something like that. We'd first have to change the zoning code to require a CUP for it. Then they'd have to apply for the CUP, and that would pretty much end the project for Block Metrics, would be my understanding, based on the timelines for construction.
What is the timeline for the construction?
So construction, obviously, to do like the concrete stuff, would need to be done sometime in October. So to push it out another couple of months, you'd be beyond that time where you'd be able to really do a lot of the concrete work and be able to meet the power deadlines that potentially BPU would extend.
Anyone else?
Well, one question I have, so when we go through this issue with planning and zoning, and they come up with new regulations on crypto mining, what if it goes against either one of these crypto mining companies?
So, for instance, you have just for crypto, they'd be grandfathered in, they're already completed. As long as a building permit's issued, the other one would be fine as well. If any of them want to expand their operations, that's when they'd have to come back for a conditional use permit.
This kind of seems backwards. We came up with one through council already. Last night that went into effect. But I don't know what else is going to come out of that discussion. So are we going to totally miss something that's important? I don't know. I do know that this project is better than what we've seen so far. I don't think the sound is going to be as big of an issue as what we certainly would have had. I'm nervous about missing something. That's all.
Understood. Thank you. I'd like to give the applicant, if they would like, the opportunity to present here. So I see a whole list of people on our screen and a whole lot of names to write, but I have no idea who is who. So we'll do our best here to let you guys speak, whoever would like to. So first one to raise your hand. Go ahead, raise your hand. We'll get you in here, and we'll. Raise your hand, and I'm told is *3 by Mr. Bevins. And we'll give you a chance to just kind of talk us through the application here a little bit. Please. There we go. This is Clark. Is that Mr. Swanson? Is that correct?
That's right.
Very good. Thank you. So the floor is yours, Mr. Swanson.
Thank you so much, guys. And thanks, everyone, for working towards this. I understand and hear the concerns. I've seen the process that you all have gone through to get to this stage, and I appreciate the work. Certainly appreciate, again, the concerns. As somebody who anticipates being part of Brainerd community, I want to be well integrated within the community, make sure that those concerns are reasonably and equitably addressed. And so what I have done, because I know the sound is one of the concerns, and I think it's important to understand the changes that have been made, and I also appreciate the recognition with the existing plans that we have today versus some of the older plans that have been submitted to the city. So we did our work, I think, was to adhere to the ethos that we believe in, to give back to the community and do something that we can all be proud of, and without friction. Because I don't have any desire to do anything where we have friction within the community. I want to make this a better place for the community, and that's really very important to me. As part of that, I wanted to go back to the manufacturers and make sure that everything is crystal clear in terms of the sound. And we go well above and beyond the sound thresholds that would be acceptable to the city, the community, even in a residential neighborhood. So what I did is I invited today Rosso, who really is responsible for the implementation of these machines and has done numerous installations and has all the raw data that we have used to come up with those parameters, of which exceeded really the parameters that we were provided for both industrial and or residential communities. And so what I'd like to do, I have Dan from Rosso Systems here. And if you don't mind, Dan, I don't mean to put you on the spot. And I know this was a last minute invite. Apologize for that, Dan. But it would be helpful, I think, to explain to the council and people that are here today what you explained to me when we first went down this path together, because one of the things that I said to Dan and Rosso is I don't want to get into a situation where we have any issues with sound. And that goes back to the design and the design team. I also specifically gave direction to make this very aesthetically pleasing, to make it a safe environment, and to make it something where we could diffuse and blunt any sound, anything that we could do in terms of the design to improve what would otherwise be just out of the box. And one of the things that Dan will talk about is the fans and how they relate to sound and the sound of and the travel of that sound, and how they would be similar to, say, what you'd find in an AC unit in a condominium complex. And so maybe, Dan, if you just want to encapsulate that conversation, direct that to the folks at Brainerd, that would be helpful, as it was for me. And I'd appreciate if you could express the same thing.
Yeah, Clark, thanks so much, and it's an honor to be with all of you from Brainerd. I'm also joined today by Joseph Green. Joe is a mechanical engineer and a cooling expert. You could not hope to have someone better qualified to talk to some of the considerations around the cooler than Joe, who works very closely with us at Rosso. So just briefly by way of background, I am the co-founder and COO of Rosso. We do data center infrastructure, both for traditional data centers as well as for Bitcoin miners, with a specific focus on liquid immersion cooling, which has a number of advantages in terms of energy efficiency, but also, to Clark's point, to noise. And so Clark approached us several months back and really put it all on the table. Like, this project has to be something that is good for this community. It has to be good for the environment, and that includes a lot of the noise-related considerations. And so with that background, we got to work on engineering a solution, which Joe will speak to in more detail, that meets and actually exceeds the requirements that you guys have laid out with respect to the noise requirements that we have to meet at this particular facility location. So Joe can speak to that. I think ultimately that's how we've designed it. And I think really the key thing that I leave you with before Joe kind of dives into this in more detail is the coolers that we use today are specifically designed to be suitable for these types of environments. Any of you who might live in a condo building, for example, even in Brainerd, if you have AC, you've probably got a commercial grade cooler exactly like the one that we're proposing here. So commercial buildings of any sort, including condo buildings where people are living, hospitals, libraries, shopping centers, are the exact sorts of buildings that use these sorts of coolers. Furthermore, we have done these deployments for other miners to the tune of multiple megawatts, including for public miners. And they've come to us with the same sort of criteria, actually very similar exact readings in terms of volumes that have to be met. And we've done that very successfully, well under the threshold that's required with the specific cooler design that we proposed as part of the solution for Blockmetrics. So it's definitely designed to provide you guys with the cooling requirements that you need. And I think the 68 decibels that we talked about at 33 feet really being the worst case scenario. Ultimately, Joe, I think you can explain why it's actually going to be much less given a number of the other site-specific factors here. So yeah, Joe, do you want to touch a little bit on that for the group here?
Sure. Thank you, Dan. Everyone can hear me, correct?
Yep, we got you, Joe.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So my background is I've worked I started out with the federal government for the Department of State, Department of Defense, doing facilities and mechanical engineering for them. Gravitated my way to New York City doing residential high-rises, which is a big challenge for noise abatement, especially when you have to put all of your towers in close proximity with where people are living. And then for the last couple years before I joined Rosso, I was working with Tesla down in Austin, and part of our responsibility to the community was to control the noise that was generated from the factory. So I appreciate and I understand the concerns for sound. The one thing I can say is I've looked at the document put together by, I believe it was Mr. Kramvik.
Yes.
That's a very good document, and you did an excellent job at combining the decibel level for the 8 coolers, and you have a little bit more of a spread inside that building, and then the way that you show the map of the decibel levels with rings coming out. That would be your worst case scenario. The one thing it doesn't take into account the building that's around it. You also have sound absorption from the trees and the surrounding area. It doesn't look like it's a necessarily flat area. It looks like you have a lot of foliage and trees, which will also dissipate that sound even further. And then the last thing is that when we size the dry coolers for our customer, we basically size them to run 15% from at 85% on the hottest day. So we're not running these things at 100% on the design condition days, the hottest days of the year. So they're not going to be as loud as what we used in this documentation to come up with these decibel readings. So you put the sound absorption from the surroundings, the sound absorption from the building, and the fact that we're running these dry coolers designed at 85% instead of 100%, you're really going to see significantly less decibel readings than what you're seeing on the ring document that shows the decimals dropping at every certain feet. I would say anywhere between 25 and 30%. That's from my experience, not exactly any calculations that I've done.
Can I just get you to talk specifics, because I'm probably more of a lay person, like many of the people in the room, when it comes to the sound dynamics of these systems, Joe. And it's my understanding you've got 68 decibels on the Kelvion system. That's maxed out 100% without any without any encroachment of a building, any sounding materials or anything, right? 60 dB at 33 feet, that's 100%. So if we're at 85% at the worst time of day, say 85%, you think that's a 30% reduction in the sound?
At least 30%.
Okay. So I'm just betting.
I would expect it to be more around 40%, because you get louder between 90% and 100%, or you get significantly more noise out of a fan.
Yeah. So a couple points that I'd make. Speech is about what, 45 decibels? Your conversation.
Yes.
Okay. So right at the level that we're talking about, we're roughly 40 decibels, I think, if I calculated that correct. At about 40 decibels, we have the enclosure, and we also have these, to be clear, these are not high-pitched fans. When you think about air cool, when people talk about Bitcoin mining, a lot of people revert to the air-cooled containers, which run a lot of these units, and they have very, very small fans, and they make a very high-pitched noise. And collectively, you get thousands of these things together, and it's a shrill like nobody wants to hear. None of these machines have fan blades. These are all cooled in an immersion tank. And those cooling stations are what we're talking about, the commercial fans, which would be analogous to an AC unit in a condominium complex. I just think it's very important to make that distinction, because I have no interest at all, and I know an effort to get some air-cooled systems on this south parcel failed, and I'm with you. I've seen the air-cooled facilities with these high-speed micro fans, and I would not be a fan of it all. And I have no interest in doing that. So I think I just wanted to make that clarification. I hope for the folks in Brainerd that helps. And I just wanted to bring the specific numbers to these things, because we're talking at 33 feet, 40 decibels. At 15, you won't hear this thing at 1,500 feet. You won't hear it at 500 feet. So I personally can tell you I have no concern over the noise, and I hope that's come through in terms of the data. And again, I'm really interested in Brainerd, because I believe that there's a lot that we can bring to Brainerd besides Bitcoin mining. In my experience, this is what I want to do. I want to make Brainerd a better place. I want to spend a lot of time there. We could mine anywhere in the world. And I happen to spend some time there. I really, it's akin to where I grew up, Brainerd. I grew up in a bigger town, but as I mentioned before, I grew up in Calgary. When I was there, it was 250,000, quite a bit bigger than Brainerd now. But anyway, I'd be very excited to work with everybody, and I hope that we can proceed with this. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity. And I'll do everything that I can to make sure that the communication is expressed clearly, transparently, and if there are any issues, I'm here to address those.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Swanson. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Swanson or Dan or Joe? Yes, please, Mr. Bevins, fire away.
Hi, Mr. Swanson. My name is Kelly Bevins, and I don't know how to say this, but I want to believe you. What happens when it doesn't work? You heard myself and Commissioner O'Day all talk about we probably dropped the ball. This should be a conditional use. And conditional uses allow us to place conditions with consequences on the use. We don't have this in this case. What happens when it's not 40 decibels or 60 decibels? What happens when it's absolutely way worse?
Well, I hear you, Kelly. I'm not sure how that would happen given the manufacturer specs on this. I mean, if we were saying we're putting in the Kelvion units, which are spec'd out to what we just described, and then we couldn't get those and we decided we would put in something else, I mean, I wouldn't endorse that. That's not what I would do. If we can't do this, we're not doing it. I don't know any other way to express that to you. And just in terms of just stepping back, in terms of the community, and I can give you my word, but my word is we don't know each other. But what I do have is, a reputation and a history in terms of building value in communities, and that's what I've done for my whole career. And this is really, to me, more about building value in the community. It sounds maybe a little cheeky, but it's true. It's really what I enjoy doing. And I think I mentioned the story last time. I moved to Las Vegas for a number of years, and I found the public school system was terrible there. It was 49 out of 50. And my children were in the public schools, and I realized the public schools were abysmal failure. And I put together what we call NEED, which is Nevada Educational Enrichment Directive. And I did that because I was mad. I was upset that people were in the public school system and it was failing them. And so I put together state leadership, public school education, law enforcement, to come together and put directives in place that would enhance and build a better school system for the state of Nevada and the city of Las Vegas. That was just on my own time because I wanted to, because I was upset by that. And so I think the same thing should transcend here. I want to add value. I want to be a company that comes in with an ethos that really resonates with the city. And if it doesn't, I simply don't want to do it. So I won't let you down. There is no reason why this should change, Kelly. There's no reason why the information that we have. I said to Dan, I said, you go out, if these are the real specs, and we can send you the video, Kelly. I said, go out to he's got a 2 megawatt facility in Austin, Texas. I said, go out to your facility right now. He says, okay, goes out to the facility. I go stand by the air cooler right now. Take your instrument, read the sound decibels that are coming off that. We're having a conversation. He showed me the reading. I got it all on video because I didn't want to take the manufacturer's word for it. I didn't want to take his word for it. It's trust but verify. And so I'm confident, and I can certainly share these things with James, certainly send you the video that I had him record because I wanted to share that with my colleagues. And I'm confident in Rosso. I'm confident in our team. And also I'm excited to work with the folks in Brainerd to do this, the contractors, the electricians, the other people that'll be working with us hand in hand to develop this if you'll let us.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Anybody?
If I may just interject and add a couple points here.
Yes, please, just
Joe
let
and
us know who you are
Dan,
here real quick, just so people can hear. Name, please.
Sure. My name is Ro Chirole with Blockmetrics.
Okay, got it.
And my question is really piggybacking on Clark's answer here. Joe and Dan, in your experience working with many different cooler manufacturers in the specs that they put out there to the market, how, in your experience, the specific coolers that you've worked with for these systems, how accountable are those manufacturers at adhering to the specs that that we're rolling out with for this type of deployment?
Kelvions are used around the world, and I can guarantee you I have personally backed up their specs and stamped my professional engineering stamp to their documents based off of their specs. And anytime we've checked it in the field, it is always at or below what is in the specification document. They put these things in hospitals. They put them in large residential buildings. If they are not within spec, they're going to be sued because people who live there are going to sue them for that. So their spec documents, I trust them, and the community trusts them. Otherwise, they would still not be in business today. They are very reputable.
Very good, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so I'm just going
And if I could, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, please.
No, I just have one more thing to say that when Clark came to Rosso and said, we want these dry coolers. If they said we have a sound issue, one of my recommendations would be to put a structure around the dry coolers. Clark already came to us with that in hand, saying that, listen, we want to put our utilities in an enclosed building. And I was like, this is great. This is really going a step beyond. So that's something I noted from these guys from the get-go, and I just thought I would pass that on to you guys.
Very good, thank you. So I'm just going to summarize with one quick follow-up question for Mr. Swanson. If I could, please, will this building, as presented, operate at or below the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency standards 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in perpetuity? Yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you. Do we have any, please, Mr. Kramvik?
So we did include the specs within the construction documents, so they are bound. They can't, install cheaper cooling units at this point. They're bound to install what's in the specifications.
Understood. Thank you, Mr. Kramvik. Any other questions for either James or the applicants? Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming aboard here and lending us a little bit of your expertise. I will turn this back over to us for any discussion or potentially a motion here.
I get a motion when you're ready.
Let's have it.
I'm not hearing any discussion. I don't want to cut anybody off.
Does anyone have any discussion before Mr. Bevan just rolls out the motion?
I got somewhere I gotta be. I move to adopt the PDA based on, as Mr. O'Day said, the approval, the ability for Block Metrics to work things out with the public utilities on what's necessary to provide the power per their agreement and specs.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, please.
I believe Clark. I wish this was a conditional use. I think it should be a conditional use. I think we've had 2.5 years to make it a conditional use and didn't. I think that's unfortunate. That being said, it sounds like what these guys are going to build is better than what we already have in spades. I think we dropped the ball by allowing that in here since they're also using outdoor storage as a primary use on the one parcel. We found out recently their parcel's not even connected to the building that they're mining in. So that being said, I think we can probably should make this a conditional use going forward for any future uses and if they want to expand. But for now, boy, I think, as Mr. O'Day said, they've put together a pretty nice looking plan.
Thank you. Any other comments, discussion items? All right, we have a motion and a second.
Request a roll call.
I will. My intent is I'm going to request a roll call here. A yes vote means that you support the motion that Kelly made to approve as presented. A no vote means obviously the opposite. Please call the roll.
Bevins.
Yes.
Grasula.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Kirsch.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Yeager.
Yes. And with that, our motion carries, and the only thing remaining is an adjournment.
Adjourned.
Got to move into adjourn and a second. It was a race. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
On this.
Thank you, everyone.